Hello, good morning. I'm going to read you two stories this morning with very similar titles. It's the stories, or they are the stories that we're going to discuss at Walkden Library this evening. We're also going to discuss them at Didsbury in a few weeks. I'm going to start with John Fuller's My Story, and then I'm going to read you John Barth's Life Story. And I'd like us to think about these stories together and see what each of them is doing, what each of them is talking about. So John Fuller's My Story is included in the Oxford Book of English Short Stories, and it's very short. My Story by John Fuller. Now that I am slowing up a bit, somebody really ought to come along and take down my story. There's time yet, but they won't have forever. What would I tell them? Well now, it's a question of what's important, isn't it? There's a whole load of stuff that they wouldn't want to hear. I roasted the very onions that Cyrus ate on the day that Babylon fell. It was my twin sister who was chosen to be sealed into the pyramid. She gave me a letter which I was never to open. I broached the Great Wall of China from the north. When my pony collapsed beneath me, I lived for 40 days in the ice on its raw flesh. I returned with the first gunpowder that the West had ever seen or heard, wrapped in pieces of silk taken from the porcelain tower of Nankin. I bought my freedom from Turks with it, and saw them topple and straddling lighthouse giant into the Bay of Rhodes, capsizing 18 galleys. I was the first worshipper at the Temple of Diana at Ephesus, and the first Christian to outstare the lions at the Colosseum. With my freedom and noted speed of riding, I carried greetings to the 7 churches of Asia. In Ephesus, I saw a woman branded for consorting with an elk-hound. In Smyrna, I stayed for the drying of the grape harvest. In Pergamus, I ate the raw livers of goats, a delicacy, and contracted a tapeworm. In Thyatira, I coaxed it out, sitting for 10 days over a chamber of warm milk. In Sardis, I gave my last piece of gold for a timber of the ark, which crumbled to dust in my saddlebag. In Philadelphia, I lay with 3 sisters in one night, daughters of a blind scrivener who beat me at chess. In Laodicea, I saw a mountain lion with 2 heads, stuffed. All these churches are now Muslim, though I had no personal responsibility for that. Nobody can think of themselves as a character in their own story. Nobody, in fact, sees their life as a story. You never get outside it to see its shape. If anyone's going to record my story, they're going to have to make their own sense of it. Hasn't it been a restless search for something, or simply a series of distractions and mistakes? One damn thing after another? Another reason for not believing in your own story is not being able to see how the world can go on without you. But it has to go on without you in order to understand your story and its significance. Perhaps obscurity would be the better destiny. Stories need resolution, but we have only the desire for achieving a state of things, a stasis, a being suspended, quite unresolved. We don't want it to stop, whatever the glory. There is only one story after all, the story of our bodies telling us that we exist. There was John Fuller's My Story, a very short story. I'm going to follow it with John Barth's Life Story in a separate video. Please do write your comments, your reactions to what you heard. maybe some answers to questions posed by the story. Thank you for listening.